Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, and this, on the Live Oaks map, is Mad Matt 265 in the T43. Now there's a tank you don't see very often, and you don't see it very often because, well, it's kinda shit. I know, it doesn't seem like it could possibly be true. A Soviet medium tank that, well, kinda sucks. Believe it or not, there was a time when most Soviet medium tanks kinda sucked. I mean, the T-34 at Tier 5 has always been excellent. Not difficult to kill, but a good tank. The T-34-85 at Tier 6 used to be kinda shit. I mean, the best gun that was available for it was the 100mm D10T, which sounds impressive at Tier 6, a 100mm gun, but it wasn't a very good gun at all. It's now far better with the 85mm gun that it had historically. The T-43 here at Tier 7 is basically, well, believe it or not, it actually predates the T-34-85. Development of this tank started before the development of the T-34-85. Although this tank never entered production, prototypes were built, and then the Russians just kind of decided, actually, you know, we're not going to bother. We'll take that turret though, and we'll put it on the T-34. And then they developed an 85mm gun for it. This tank never had the 85mm gun. It had the 76mm gun instead. So what you basically have here is a T-34-85 with, admittedly, slightly better armour that, ironically enough, can't even fit the T-34-85's best 85mm gun fresh out of the box. This is not a fun tank to play when it's completely stock. It doesn't even enjoy the same mobility as the tank that you just upgraded from, and there are 2 engine upgrades to go through before you get the best 600 horsepower engine, and even with that it's still kinda sluggish. It does at least have thicker armour. The hull is 75mm front, sides and rear, and is nicely sloped everywhere. Basically keep this thing angled at 45 degrees, as you can see Matt doing, and it's as good as it's ever going to get. And the turret, once you've upgraded it, is 90mm everywhere. None of that's much compensation, however, for the, well, fact that you're basically playing a slightly souped up, if more sluggish, version of the tank that you already played at Tier 6, except now you have to fight Tier 9s and you don't even get the best gun on the tank that you just played at Tier 6. At least not at first. Although when you do get it, you do get slightly better gun depression than you might have been previously used to in Soviet tanks. Don't get too excited, it's still worse gun depression than anything except, well, anything that's Chinese, but it's still better than you're going to have been used to. Now, Mad Matt, probably hasn't escaped your attention, is holding this southern flank on Live Oaks with the assistance of only 2 friendlies. And they are outnumbered at least 2 to 1. He does have 2 things in his favour, however. First, the Type 64, hidden in the bushes on the spit of land to the right over there, jutting out into the lake, appears to be determined to ensure that Mad Matt gets a steel wall medal out of this battle. And also, despite the fact that they are outnumbered at least 2 to 1 over here, the enemy team don't appear to be in any rush to do anything useful about it. In fact, they're actually allowing the Hellcat to rush them. Yep, Matt is in a, well, even though he is top tier, this is a fairly mediocre tank, backed up by only 2 allies, both of whom have fairly terrible armour, but he has at least the great good fortune to be on the receiving end of what has to qualify as an enemy lemming train. A lemming train, of course, can, at least initially, often be confused with an aggressive push from a superior number of heavily armoured vehicles. But when that superior number of heavily armoured enemy vehicles immediately stops at first sight of you and your heavily outnumbered teammates, you know you're dealing with a lemming train. And when something as pathetically badly armoured as a Super Hellcat takes the initiative and forces them all onto the back foot, well, there really can't be any further doubt, can there? I'm almost embarrassed for them. I mean, that's at least 6 enemy tanks. And Mad Matt and his 2 teammates have not only stopped them cold, they've crushed them. they've absolutely humiliated them. I mean, you can kind of understand it to a degree. You're pushing south, there's a whole bunch of you. None of you are particularly big or heavy tanks, but you've got some tank destroyers with some fairly decent guns to back you up, and a whole bunch of fast, well-armed mediums. And the Type 64 that's rushed ahead spots 3 enemies. One of them's a T-43. I mean, maybe he didn't even spot the Hellcat until it was too late, but the other one was just a poodle. And the T-43 is just, well, it's just a T-43. At the same time, though, those are just the ones that you've spotted. You don't know what else is back there waiting for you, so it makes sense, at least at first, to kind of, you know, take cover, try to get an idea of what it is that you're actually facing. But if you're still cowering in the same bushes behind the same ridge 4 minutes later, after your numerical superiority has been chipped away by the same 3 tanks that you first saw 4 minutes ago, well, what happens next is nobody's fault but your own. So congratulations to the enemy team, whose cowardice and indecision just resulted in their getting their arses handed to them on a silver plate by a tank destroyer with 12mm of armour, 1 Tier 6 medium tank, and what is arguably the most mediocre Russian medium tank in the game, the T-43. Then again, this is of course World of Tanks, and as we all know, RNGesus giveth and RNGesus taketh away. And what Mad Matt and his 2 teammates have done to the enemy lemming train on this end of the map, the reverse appears to have happened to his team on the other end of the map. His teammates in the town, despite enjoying a numerical superiority over the enemy in the town, appear to have died just as spectacularly and uselessly as the enemy team did down to the southeast. So it looks like Mad Matt has even more carrying to do from over here, although I'm sure the situation in the town wasn't helped by the 2 heavy tanks, the KV-1 and KV-2, who are actually hiding behind the Hellcat. And that spot right there, that's the closest they've ever gotten to any of the enemy tanks. Still, look on the bright side. Useless teammates aren't actually always 100% completely useless. I mean, true, you can't rely on them to get stuck in and actually shoot at anything. But while they're cowering behind the bushes, they can sometimes at least spot things, so that people who are prepared to get stuck in and shoot at things can, well, you know, get stuck in and shoot at things. I will say one further thing about the KV-1 and the KV-2 over there. They are at least no longer hiding behind all of the friendly tank destroyers, although that wasn't through choice. It's just that all of the friendly tank destroyers in front of them have been killed, spotting for the KV-1 and the KV-2, who... have they actually hit anything yet? We'll find out at the end of the battle. 2 enemies left. Matt has basically circumnavigated the entire map now. The Poodle's with him. The Super Hellcat has gone back. Oh, an AMX M445 with a very, very nasty gun. Looks like the Poodle ducked behind Matt there, so Matt took the hit. Which is good, because the Poodle would have been one-shotted. And Matt was angled, but when you only have 75mm of hull armour, a tank like the AMX M445 is going to penetrate regardless. Enemy KV-1. Come on, Matt, get the kill. For a Radley Walters. Come on. Nope, somebody else got the KV-1. Can you get the AMX M4? You've got the health to spare. Oh, and he's bounced. It's going to require at least 1 more shot unless the rest of the team put him on low enough health that you can claim the Radley Walters medal with the last shot you fired. Well done, Matt. Thoroughly well deserved. I feel pretty sure that Matt would like to express his thanks to the enemy team for being as shit as they were, but just not quite as shit as the rest of Matt's team, with the obvious exception of the Super Hellcat and the Poodle, without whom that Ace Tanker medal would almost certainly not have been possible, nor the Radley Walters medal to go along with it. Thanks also go to the Type 64, who was largely responsible for the Steel Wall medal. Yep, nearly 4,000 damage done, which is pretty impressive in the T-43, but even more impressive, 12 hits received, only 3 of them actually penetrated, which means that a tank that only has 75mm of hull armour just blocked 1,550 points of damage. But hang on a second, Jingles, you smooth-talking, silver-tongued and inexplicably handsome bastard, I hear you all cry. Where's the team results page? Ah, well, you see, I've been saving the best till last. Unsurprisingly, our 3 heroes, Mad Matt, the Poodle and the Super Hellcat, are all at the top. The only thing surprising about the KV-2's position is that he isn't right at the bottom. The KV-2 managed to do a grand total of fuck all damage. And that wasn't because he didn't hit anything. He fired 6 shots and one of them did actually manage to strike a target, but failed to do any damage. What dark Soviet sorcery is this? How is that even possible in a KV2? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, can I ask you to all please put your hands together and give a rousing round of applause to a KV2 player who not only hides behind the tank destroyers, but he also fires armor-piercing ammunition. I don't know, maybe somebody should do a collection of KV2 videos and put them all up on YouTube, just explaining the glory that is the high explosive ammunition on the KV2's howitzer. You never know, it might catch on. Nah, who am I kidding? Anyway, Mad Matt, well done for getting such a good result in such a thoroughly mediocre tank. Although I suspect you do realise that if just one of the enemies that you were facing in the first half of the battle had been able to think and breathe at the same time, that battle would almost certainly have gone entirely differently. But they couldn't, it didn't, and you got the result that you deserved, so well done. Everyone else, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.